Well, they had a lot of problems at that time, with a lot of crime and stuff. And that's one of the reasons that I was able to keep my kids at home. I know Michael always complained, but he never did have a childhood. He had a wonderful childhood. Why I say that? Because his childhood, he was there with his brothers and sisters. He always played with them. I just didn't want him out there playing with the kids and stuff that always in trouble.
Michael Jackson became the king of pop, but behind his success was a painful relationship with the man who raised him. Joe Jackson played a major role in building Michael's career, but many fans believe he also left deep emotional scars. What made the situation even more difficult was the way Joe later spoke about Michael during a live TV interview. Rather than expressing regret, he defended himself, denied the pain Michael had described, and even compared Michael to Jermaine. For many fans, it felt as though Michael still never received the recognition and praise he deserved from his own father. That is where this story becomes especially uncomfortable.
Saw magic in Michael.
I saw magic in all of them with Michael leading the songs, yeah. Mm-hmm. But Jermaine's a very good leader too. Jermaine, it's kind of hard to tell which one's the better singer, but I think Jermaine may be just a little bit better ballad singer than Michael.
Before Michael Jackson became famous, even his own father did not believe he should be the lead singer of the group. Michael later said that his mother had to convince Joe Jackson to listen to him sing because Joe had already decided that Jermaine was the strongest vocalist. That detail is important because it reveals something painful from the very beginning. Michael had the talent, the voice, the music, and the star quality, yet even in his own home he still had to earn recognition. Long before the world celebrated him, he was searching for approval from the one person whose opinion meant the most to him.
Mother caught me making my bed one day and I was singing. And she said to my father that I could sing and he didn't want to hear of it. He said that Jermaine's the lead singer, not Michael. My mother said, Joe, you really should hear him sing. He can sing. She goes, no, Jermaine's the lead singer of the group, and that's it. She forced him to listen to me, and once he listened to me, from that moment on, I was the lead singer of the group.
But the pressure inside the Jackson family home was about much more than singing. Michael later shared that rehearsals were driven by fear. He said Joe would sit with a belt in his hand while the children practiced, and if they made a mistake, punishment could come quickly. To the public, the Jackson 5 appeared to be a happy and gifted family living out a dream. Behind the music, however, Michael described a childhood where perfection was expected, fear became part of everyday life, and a single mistake could lead to pain instead of support.
He used me as the example. It was like, do it like Michael. And he practiced us with a belt in his hand. And if you miss a step, expect to be...
Just let me go back. You just said that you would practice the dance steps and your father would be holding a belt in his hand. Is that what you just said?
Yes. And he would tear you up if you missed. And so we, not only were we practicing, we were nervous rehearsing because he sat in the chair and he had this belt in his hand. And if you didn't do it the right way, he would tear you up.
Michael Jackson never described Joe Jackson's discipline as ordinary or simply strict parenting. To Michael, rehearsals were about much more than practicing songs or perfecting dance moves. They were surrounded by fear. Joe pushed the brothers relentlessly, and even when Michael became the standard everyone else was expected to match, the pressure never felt like recognition. Instead, it came with punishment, beatings, panic, and the constant fear of making a mistake. For Michael, those experiences did not fade away after he became famous. They remained painful memories that stayed with him into adulthood and deeply influenced the way he looked back on the childhood he believed he had lost.
How often would he beat you?
Too much.
Would he only use a belt?
Why do you do this to me? No, more than a belt.
What else would he use to hit you with?
Ironing cords, whatever's around. Throw you up against the wall hard as he could. See, it's one thing to...
But you were only a child.
I know.
You were a baby.
I know. It's one thing to discipline.
And you were producing successful records.
I know. He would lose his temper. I just remember hearing my mother scream, "Joe, you're gonna kill him, you're gonna kill him, stop it, you're gonna kill him," you know, and I was so fast, you know, he couldn't catch me half the time, but when he would catch me, oh my God, it was bad.
Even many years later, when Michael Jackson had already become one of the most famous people on earth, speaking about his father still made him uneasy. In one interview, when he was asked whether Joe had been too strict, Michael paused, laughed nervously, and joked that his father would kill him for answering. But beneath that joke, the message was clear. This was not simply the memory of a strict parent. It was a grown man who still reacted with fear whenever his father's name was mentioned.
Strong parents, I think, are very important, especially in our situation. If he hit me, I would hit him back, which was terrible. And I would run around the house and hide and all that stuff. But I would really get it more than anybody.
Do you think your father was too strict?
Yes. No, he's gonna kill me.
He's gonna get you still worried about that at your age? Well, he feels that he was strict.
I'm glad he said it. Now I'll say it.
While the world watched Michael Jackson smiling on stage, winning awards, and breaking records, LaToya Jackson described a very different reality behind the scenes. According to her, Michael was not only carrying painful childhood memories, she said the fear remained with him even at the height of his success. That makes the story even more heartbreaking because fame did not erase what had happened behind closed doors. Michael could stand before millions of people, but according to LaToya, the emotional impact of his father's control never truly left him.
What was it like at home?
It was very, very hard. My father was very strict. He beat us.
Well, when you say he beat you, did he spank you, whip you? I mean, what?
He had a belt, you say in the book. Belts, whips, whatever. My brothers were grown, and my father would take his fist and he would punch him and knock him down the steps constantly.
Would they provoke
him? To
him?
this day, no, of course not. To this day, they are still afraid of my father, and they will tell you. They come to me and they say, LaToya, we have kids in college, and we're afraid of my father still today. But my mother allowed this to go on, which makes it so bad. She didn't stop it.
She, too, was a victim, wasn't she?
My mother, by my father, according to my brother, yes. According to Michael, he would tell me he would see my father beating my mother. I had never seen my father beat my mother, but he beat all of us.
So did this persist all through your childhood and continue into young adulthood?
Everything. I mean, Michael was doing, I think it was Off the Wall, Thriller, and he was still getting beat, but what you guys see is him up on the awards, accepting these awards, and smiling. My father's chasing him around the house, and he's running from him, terrible.
What makes the story even more heartbreaking is that LaToya said Michael was the one child who tried to stand up for himself. But instead of the family openly confronting what had happened, she said the response was denial. That is one reason Michael's pain remained hidden behind the image of a perfect show business family. In front of the cameras, they appeared talented, polished, and successful. Behind that public image, however, there was tension, fear, and silence. For Michael, the most difficult part may not have been only what happened, but also the feeling that no one truly wanted to acknowledge it.
You said that Michael was the only one that actually tried to fight back and tried to hit your father.
He was a little boy, yes. He was the only one. I don't think he knew exactly what he was doing, but the more he would get beat, he'd throw it back at him and throw a street. He would have to always get the last lick in, always.
What's been the reaction of your family to this book?
I have no idea. My parents, of course, they're denying it, and of course, typical that they would deny it. Denial is the first sign of dysfunctional, and as well. However, outsiders have accepted the book, and they understand. They understand about the abuse. There wasn't just physical abuse, it was also mental.
When Tito Jackson was asked about Joe Jackson as a parent, his response was not what many Michael Jackson fans expected. Instead of describing Joe's behavior as cruel, Tito defended him. He said their father was strict but believed he had his reasons, and even called him one of the greatest men. That response shows just how divided the family's story became. Some viewed Joe as the man who drove them to greatness, while others focused on the pain that came with that success. For Michael's fans, that difference matters because the same discipline that helped build the Jackson 5 also left emotional scars on the child who became its biggest star.
People have an assessment of the way that you were raised. It's in the news, like people talk about, Joe and how he raised you. Did you feel any level of resentment? Did you think that was unnecessary, or just what you needed?
What I say about that is people can say what they want. I know my lifestyle. I respect people respect me. And my father was strict, but he had his reasons. You didn't think that those reasons were unreasonable.
Tito continued to defend Joe, but even within that defense, the emotional cost of Michael's childhood became more visible. He explained Joe's strict approach as something driven by a desire to help his children succeed, but growing up under constant pressure can leave lasting effects. Success does not erase that damage. It often only hides it. Michael became a global star, yet one question remained. What did he give up to become that star? That is where the story becomes more complex, because the same father who helped build the group also played a role in creating the fear Michael carried with him for years.
Parents didn't spare the rod, man.
Right.
You did something wrong, you were scared to go home.
Right.
So that's just the way it was.
And I always thought, like, look, I can't. That man, I wasn't in that household, but I can say this: your name is written in the stars, and you have to have, to some degree, some level of appreciation for what got you there.
Absolutely.
So
totally.
you were appreciative of it.
Oh man, I've always said, way back in the day, that I think that my father did a fantastic job. I think he's one of the greatest men. And today a lot of men need to learn from.
But when the conversation shifted directly to Michael, the emotional impact became much more evident. Tito admitted that Michael never truly had the chance to experience a normal childhood. He explained that Michael's affection for children came from his desire to protect them from the same pain and strict discipline he had gone through. That single admission reinforced what Michael had been saying for years. Fame brought him wealth, recognition, and legendary status, but it also came at a personal cost. He never experienced the simple childhood that most people take for granted, and that loss influenced the way he viewed the world throughout his life.
He could never hit Michael. He swing over here, Michael's over there. So
all of this stuff, and we have to talk about that. All the stuff that's going on with Michael. How does that make you feel? What do you
Well, it makes me feel really bad, because Michael is probably one of the most different type of people. Growing up, his life is basically who he is. He was a kid all his life, and he never got things to do that most kids do, play outside. And
you thought that hurt his development?
Well, it makes him want to do things longer, I think. He still was enjoying Mickey Mouse and Disneyland movies and things like that. So that's basically where he was as a person.
That also helps explain why Michael's later world appeared so childlike to many people on the outside. For him, it was not simply fantasy or unusual behavior. It was his way of reaching for the childhood he believed had been taken away from him. Neverland, toys, games, animals, amusement rides, and spending time around children were all connected to something much deeper. Michael was trying to rebuild a part of his life that he never had the chance to experience. Many people judged it from the outside, but for Michael, it was closely tied to a wound that had begun long before he became famous around the world.
Totally wrong. I think the world has him wrong. He was a very loving person. I think he's kind of the person that felt that when he was growing up, he wouldn't want a kid to get spanked the way he was,
right,
or whatever. Or he's very giving. If a kid needs help in the hospital or school or needs to go to college, he's there.
Even while speaking about Michael's kindness toward children, Joe Jackson still found a way to give himself the credit. He suggested that Michael may have inherited that caring nature from him, but for many fans that moment felt uncomfortable because Michael's love for children was often linked to the childhood he believed he had lost. It did not seem like something Joe had simply passed on to him. Instead, it felt like something Michael developed through his own painful experiences. He understood what it was like to live with fear, constant pressure, and a lost sense of innocence. That is why he wanted the children around him to experience happiness instead.
I guess Michael got it from me. I don't wish bad on nobody, But when somebody break the rules and it can be proven that they broke the rules, it has to be dealt with with the law of the land.
In an interview after Michael died, Joe Jackson was asked directly about the pain many people believed he had caused his son. Instead of expressing regret, Joe completely denied those claims. He said he had only done what any parent would do while raising a child. To some people, that may have sounded like a father defending his approach to discipline, but to many of Michael's fans it seemed that Joe still did not recognize the difference between raising a child and raising one through fear. Michael had spoken openly about the pain he experienced, yet Joe continued to describe it as ordinary parenting.
What do you say about all these things that have been said over the years that you harmed Michael as a
Oh,
child?
that's a bunch of bull. That's a bunch of bull.
Straighten me out.
And that's not true.
You never physically harmed him?
Never have. And I raised him just like you would raise your kids, you know. But harm Michael for what? I have no reason. That's my son. I loved him.
Michael Jackson's father also told Larry King that he believed he had made no mistakes while raising his son. He insisted that he never beat Michael and rejected the stories that had surrounded the family for years. But what surprised many fans was how strongly he denied those claims, even though Michael had already spoken publicly about being beaten. That is what made the story between father and son so heartbreaking. Michael described a childhood marked by fear and punishment, while Joe completely rejected the most serious parts of those accounts. For many fans watching, it felt as though Michael's pain was being dismissed even after his death.
Joe, do you have any at all bad feelings about the way Michael was raised? I know you're denying the stories about violence, but as you look at it, were there any mistakes you made?
I didn't make no mistakes, Larry, because Michael was raised properly. He didn't run the streets like most of those other kids that was in his neighborhood. Michael
why did he say that you
listen now, you got to understand me. Don't cut me off here, Larry.
And when Larry pointed out that Michael himself had spoken about it on television, Joe still refused to accept it. He said he did not know when Michael had made those comments and once again denied ever beating him. That moment highlighted just how far apart Michael's memories and Joe's version of the past had become. Michael had spoken through tears, described his fear, and shared what he experienced as a child, yet Joe continued to deny it. For many fans, this was not simply a father defending himself. It was another moment that made it seem as though Michael's pain was being dismissed.
Didn't he once say that you were physically, emotionally abusive to him?
I've never been abusive to him. Never have.
But did he say that? Did he ever say that, to your knowledge?
Well, I don't know whether he said that or not, but I hear the media keep hollering about him. I never my son.
Larry, could I say something, Joe? Larry, do you
Wait, Ro, let me handle this right here. Let me handle this. The media keep hollering about saying that I beat my son. That's not true. You know where this beating started? Beating started in the slavery days. They used to beat the slaves, and then they used to torture them. That's where this beating started, at these slave masters. And that's where that come from. But hey, there's a lot of people in America, Larry. A lot of people in America spank the kids, you know. If they say they don't, they're lying. They're lying. And Michael was never beaten.
But the clearest example of how complicated Michael and Joe's relationship had become came when Joe visited him in Las Vegas. Instead of immediately going to see his father, Michael asked one simple but distant question: did Joseph have an appointment? That single line revealed more than a long interview ever could. This was not just a busy superstar turning away a visitor. It sounded like a son who had created emotional distance from the man who had once controlled so much of his life. Michael had become one of the most powerful entertainers in history, but when it came to his father, the old emotional wound was still there.
I recall the time that when we settled in Vegas and Joe Jackson came to the house, and he requested to see his son, and I went inside to tell Mr. Jackson, your father's here and your father would like to see you. And his first words was, does Joseph have an appointment? He did not. And certainly we did have an itinerary, each week of who he'd be seeing, who would he be calling, who would call him, who would be visiting, where we needed to go. So we knew everything and everybody that was going to be visiting him. And that one particular day, his father wasn't on the itinerary, but I didn't know the true dynamics of that relationship when he asked me, does Joseph have an appointment? And I told him he did not. He said, tell Joseph he needs an appointment. He needs to make an appointment.
And when Joe was told that he could not see Michael, his response made the tension between them even more obvious. He did not quietly accept the decision. Instead, he shouted that without him, none of them would have jobs. At that moment, Joe's way of thinking seemed unmistakable. He still viewed himself as the man who had built the family's empire. In one sense, he was part of that achievement. But the difficult question is what that success ultimately cost. The child who carried the group, the fame, and the enormous expectations also carried the fear. Joe remembered the success. Michael remembered the pain.
That was probably one of the hardest things I had to do, is to go tell somebody's father that you need an appointment to see your child. But I didn't tell him that. I told him that, I said, Mr. Jackson, your son is in the studio. It's loud. They're not answering. And I tried to give him my business card that he can give me a call tomorrow, the next day, and I'll make sure, you get in to see him. He didn't take that well at all. And he just yelled at me, wasn't for me. None of you would have these jobs. I started this. I was not going to get into an argument with Joe Jackson. I just listened to what he had to say, and I walked off. And that was hard for me to realize that's where their relationship is, that he needed an appointment.
If you made it this far, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one.